If you're excited about the technology of the future, or if you're an investor looking for the next unicorn company to bring your wealth to new heights, you're probably interested in startup companies. In this video, I will tell you about the common pitfalls that most investors and tech enthusiasts fall into when considering these specific types of business ventures. The absolutely most important thing you have to know is that almost all founders and CEOs are fucking liars. Even if you are the chairman of the board of the startup company, the founder will lie to you in order to paint a much brighter picture of the state of the company than what it really is in. The reason for this behavior is that a startup company works as a sunken cost Ponzi scheme, where the founder invests money, blood, sweat and tears into a venture. Then he convinces a business angel to invest his money as well. The business develops until it runs out of money. They now have the option to shut down and lose everything they invested and worked for, or to try to find some other sucker with money that can invest as well. So of course their incentive is to pretend that this business is the best thing since sliced bread. Some venture capitalists gets lured in and starts to pour in money. The company artificially grows, and on the outside it looks like a legitimate business. But in reality, it's a zombie company that cannot survive by itself unless it gets more capital. But the venture capitalist doesn't give a shit if the company thrives in the long run, or if the business actually works. Their incentive is just to artificially hype and grow it enough so that they can sell the company to the general public via a SPAC merger or an IPO. And this is where you most likely will be buying the company. So the founder lies to the angel. They both lie to the venture capitalist, and the venture capitalists lie in order to sell the company to the stock investors. It is in the best interest for everyone on the board that no one knows how bad of a state the company actually is in, because this will decrease the likelihood for all of them to get further money. So there is a sort of silent consensus that no one speaks the truth. So never ever trust anything the CEO says. But one other thing that you have to understand is that in many cases, the CEO or founder isn't even aware that they are lying. To understand their psychology better, we will have to draw a trait diagram where we have truth-telling on this side, naive opinions here, and nefarious lies in the third quadrant. An archetype that always tells the truth would be Sheldon Cooper from The Big Bang Theory. Sheldon has severe Asperger's and cannot understand any nuances as to when lying would benefit him, yet he feels a deep obligation to always tell the truth. In the second quadrant, we have naive truth-tellers. They will tell you a narrative that they sincerely in their hearts believe, but their view on reality is distorted, so it's dangerous to listen to their opinion. An archetype that falls into this category would be that Christian missionary John Chow, who went to the North Sentinel Island to preach about Jesus to the natives there, who has the reputation to always kill every outsider who steps foot on their territory. He was immediately murdered, and assuming that this wasn't suicide by savages, he perfectly fits the archetype of a naive optimist, where joining his venture would get you killed even though that wasn't his intention. And in the last quadrant, we have bald-faced fucking liars. The people with these traits will not think twice about lying and have no remorse. Here we place psychopaths, the slimiest of politicians, and news anchors. So where would we place a typical startup entrepreneur in this diagram? Well, they tend to fall right in between liars and naive optimists. Not all of their lies are to further their agenda. In many cases, their over-optimism actually makes them believe in the things that they promise. So I would place Elizabeth Holmes of Theranos here, and Trevor Milton of Nikola here. But I would actually place Elon Musk here, where almost all of his broken promises come from his overly optimistic timelines, which Tesla investors tend to call Elon time. Now that you know that you cannot trust anything they say, you'll have to look into the technology that they're trying to sell. Now this is a tricky one, because it can require an intense amount of research in order to understand the nuances of whether the tech can even be commercially viable or not. The first thing you should ask yourself is, does this company's success depend on them breaking any laws of physics? And this is where having a STEM degree can make you the most money, and I mean way more than your salary. Even though Thunderfoot is dead wrong on some of Elon Musk's ventures, he has great videos on lower hanging fruits where he shows the stupidity of solar roadways, self-filling water bottles and hydrogen cars. I encourage you to check them out to get the basics of ballpark calculations. Maybe he or someone else has already debunked a certain technology you are interested in. Another way to verify whether a venture is viable or not is to check if this has been done before and what happened to that company. The reason why this is a useful approach is that many tech startups are trying to reinvent the square wheel, meaning that they are trying to commercialize a product that just doesn't work. The reason for this is usually that governments have been tricked by scientists and/or big business that this next thing will solve all our problems. Examples of this is graphene, the hydrogen economy, polymer solar cells, and using wood in places where it do not belong. You have to be aware that we have these hype cycles in science and tech where everyone wants a part of that sweet government money. So they will pretend that their invention is great and close to market, even though it's not technologically or commercially viable. So let's say you want to invest in the hyped hydrogen vehicle company Nikola. You could have first checked what happened when Toyota tried to sell their hydrogen car. Spoiler, it sucked ass. Or let's say you were an early investor in Tesla. You could have checked how people liked the EV1 from General Motors in 1996. Spoiler, it was so great that it threatened GM's ICE car and dealership model, so they had to destroy all their electric cars. I'm not kidding, check out the documentary Who Killed the Electric Car. So by looking at history, you can weed out many scams, but also be aware that the technology that wasn't viable in the past can become viable in the future. An example of this is that the patent for a solid-state music player was filed in 1979. But at that time, the tech just wasn't there yet, and the real opportunity wouldn't have been realized until Apple in 2001 released their iPod, so timing of the tech is also very crucial. When you apply these rules, you will quickly find huge red flags in most startup companies, which is a very good thing, since most of them will eventually fail. It is better to not invest until you find something that you truly believe in. It is not my intention to discourage you about the future. Money invested in startups is probably 1,000 times more efficient for reaching technological advancements than donating to academic research. But you have to be aware of the vast amount of BS that is out there, because this is the only way your resources can be utilized for the greater good. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And this has been a list of things that I wish that people would have told me before I ventured into the startup world. Especially this psychology of why the founders lie is nothing that I have ever read in any startup book. And I think that this is a crucial thing that people like Matt Farrell of Undecided or Ricky at 2-Bit Da Vinci, that they misses, that they believe that what the CEO says, that he will solve all the problems and it's only the technological challenges and that they only need to scale up. But really, the statement of, oh, we only need to scale up actually means that this shit doesn't work and we're not sure if it's ever going to work, but we hope it's going to work. And I think that this mentality comes from the book The Lean Startup, which emphasizes that you have to start selling before you actually develop your tech. And this is a good idea for software companies, but it cannot be applied to engineering companies or material physics companies. Because in a software company you only have engineering problems, meaning that if you throw a bunch of money and time on it, you can actually develop the product. But in material physics companies or in engineering companies, you might run into physics problem, which means that this might not be physically possible to do. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video.